I am an 18-year-old boy, a student living apart from my parents. I want to tell you a story that happened to me this summer. When I think back on it, I feel a chill go down my spine. It was summer, in the middle of a hot July. It was already a cool evening outside, unlike during the day, and I was chatting with my friend on social networking sites, watching various videos on YouTube at the same time. I had a few freshly made sandwiches on hand. My personal account was bursting with my friends' messages, and my favorite blogger's video was open on the screen. The only thing missing to create the perfect atmosphere was warm tea. However, it was not a problem to make it. So, having informed my friend that I will go away for a few minutes in response, I got the question, "You went to shit again?" I went into the kitchen. I put the kettle on to boil and stared out the window. It was already dark and cool outside. No one was around. After a few minutes, the kettle alerted me that the water was boiling. I brewed some tea and threw a few lumps of sugar in it and put it on the windowsill to cool. I did not want to go to the stuffy room, so I decided to wait until the drink cooled down, and in the meantime enjoy the view of the deserted streets of Moscow. A minute or two passed, and a strange tall man, maybe 2 meters tall, appeared below. Tall, shaved head, wearing a white shirt with red paint on the collar, with a huge, apparently old belt and white pants. He walked at a slow pace, whistling some strange song, and then stopped and stared out the windows of the first floor of my house. I live on the second floor, by the way. I have to admit, I got a little creepy. He was too strange. And why would a normal person look through someone else's windows in the middle of the night? I didn't want to look at it for a long time, so I took the still hot tea and hurried to my room. There were already more than 20 messages in my inbox with the words, "Well, where are you?" I quickly told my buddy about the weird guy. He didn't believe me, of course, although he asked me to take a picture of him. I, of course, refused, arguing that he had already left. In fact, I just didn't want to see him again. The subject quickly faded under the umbrella of our hotly debated news. It had long since fallen dark outside, the clock showing 42, but I had no intention of leaving the internet, nor did my friend, who had just informed me that he was going to shower and then sleep, since he had to get up early tomorrow and go to find out about work. Of course, sitting alone was more boring, but since I didn't want to sleep at all, I decided to watch some videos on YouTube again. Maybe sleep would come. I had barely finished watching one blogger's video, which was 15 minutes long, when I got a message from a friend. "Dude, I just saw this. You won't believe it." Anyway, I turned on the water in the bathroom. While it was filling up, I decided to sit in the kitchen. It was fucking hot. I opened the window, staring out into the street. Suddenly I see a guy, like a normal guy, but he has something weird about him. I don't even know what. He's walking along, singing some kind of song. Then he stops near my house, looking through the windows of the first floor. He looks for 5 minutes, moves his gaze to the second floor. I thought, maybe he's waiting for a friend. Okay. And then he fucking looked through my windows, right at me. He stopped singing at once, and a smirk appeared on his face. A fucking scary smirk. I swear to you. I almost built a house of bricks. And then he yelled. In a non-human voice he yelled. And his face changed as if blackened. I went to turn it off. Then I go to the kitchen, he's gone. Maybe I glitched. I thought I told you about him. And you didn't believe me. Asshole, you should drink less. It won't seem like that. Although, he seemed strange to me too. But you have to look at the world realistically. The man decided to take a walk. Maybe he's drunk. So he looks at other people's windows. Who will take him in? Fuck. It didn't seem that way. Wait. There's a knock at the door. Weird. Who could it be at this hour? Okay. Fuck it. I'll open it. I'll text you. And go to the bathroom. Come on. I continued to watch the video, so I didn't notice that 40 minutes had passed since his last message. It didn't bother me much, though. Well, the neighbors came by, and I'm sure he spilled the bathtub while he was staring at the man. And then he forgot to sign out and left. No bad thoughts crossed my mind at the time, so I continued to sit on the internet, and after a couple of hours I went to bed. I had to go to school tomorrow. After all, the next day went by pretty quickly for me. I wanted to stop by my friend's house, by the way. He lives across the street from me, but then I remembered that he had left for work and he probably wasn't home. I didn't call either, so as not to disturb him unnecessarily. He didn't show up on social media until the evening, although he was supposed to arrive no later than 5 o'clock in the evening. Frankly, I started to worry a little, but then calmed myself with the fact that maybe he went to his girlfriend. You never know. It was about 11:53 p.m. on the clock. I went to the kitchen. I was thirsty. I poured cool water from a decanter and began to drink it while looking out the window. Suddenly the man appeared on the street again. The same clothes, the same appearance, the same song, the same step, the same stop outside my house, and the same gaze on the first floor of my house. I shuddered. But what happened next? He looked right at me, into my eyes. He had such a malicious smirk on his face that I almost choked on my water. And then his mouth opened unbelievably wide, and he screamed. It was raging, frantic, loud, and furious. My God, that scream. I had never heard anything more horrible. At that moment it seemed to me that his face had darkened, had become just a black blur. His skin sagged down to his shoulders, making his head look like a black pancake. I dropped the glass from my hands and rushed to my room. I was shaking. It must have been 15 minutes after what had happened, and I couldn't come to my senses. I was about to go to bed when suddenly there was a knock on the door, loudly, with force, as if someone on the other side of the door wanted to break it down. I sat there in a stupor, afraid to move. The knocking continued for about half an hour, and then it went quiet. I blacked out and didn't wake up until 1 o'clock the next day, remembering nothing. Maybe that was for the best. A few days later, the memory slowly washed out of my head, and I blamed it on the fact that I was too exhausted and tired, and that I was hallucinating. I thought so, until I found out about the death of a friend. A horrible death that I refused to believe. He had been hanged in the kitchen, right in front of the window. His head had been neatly shaved bald, like a good barber, and the collar of the shirt he was wearing to go to work had drops of blood falling from his slit throat. I was informed of this by his mother, with whom we were on rather good terms. As soon as I found out about his death, I realized who was responsible. Was he a maniac? Was he some otherworldly force in human form? I don't know. But since then I never look out the windows at night anymore. And I always cover them up. In loving memory of you, Max.